My father-in-law told me I wasn't welcome at my own baby shower because only real family gets to celebrate. I showed up anyway. My seat had been removed. My name was erased from the cake. When I confronted them, my sister-in-law laughed and said, "This isn't about you. You were just the incubator." My husband just stood there, silent, holding her plate. I walked out crying only to discover what he'd been hiding in the trunk of his car the entire time. Hi, my name's Cassidy. I'm from a small town in Indiana, real small, the kind of town where everybody knows your parents, your teachers, even your dog's name. I married Mason Morrison 3 years ago and moved to his hometown just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. I didn't have a lot of family of my own. My mom passed when I was young. My dad remarried and forgot about me mostly. So when Mason's family said they were big on family, I thought maybe this was my chance to finally belong somewhere. From the start, I could tell I was being tolerated more than welcomed. His mom, Patty, always had a polite smile that never reached her eyes. His sister, Heather, barely talked to me unless Mason was around. And his dad, Gerald, only ever seemed to talk to Mason like I wasn't even standing there. But Mason told me it was normal. "They're just private people," he'd say. "Give it time." I gave it 3 years. It never changed. When I found out I was pregnant, it was the happiest moment of my life. We had been trying for almost 2 years. Doctors, tests, heartbreak after heartbreak. I started to believe it would never happen for us. Then one night, staring at a plastic stick in the bathroom, everything changed. I ran to Mason, shaking and crying, holding the test. He picked me up and spun me around, laughing and crying too. I thought this would finally be it. Finally, they would love me. At first, it seemed that way. Patty called me a few times, asking how I was feeling. Gerald even grunted, good news, when Mason told him. Heather sent me a text once with a picture of a crib she liked. I held onto every little crumb they gave me. Then Patty and Heather decided to throw a baby shower. They said they'd handle everything and told me not to worry. 2 weeks before the shower, Patty called me. "Hey, sweetie," she said, all syrupy sweet. "So, we've been thinking. It's probably better if the shower is just family." I remember standing in the middle of my kitchen, the smell of spaghetti sauce on the stove, feeling my whole body go numb. "But I'm family," I said. There was a pause. A long one. "You're carrying family," she said, like I was some rented vehicle for their bloodline. I hung up without saying anything else. When I told Mason, he just rubbed my back and said, "Don't take it personally. You know how my dad is." I wanted him to storm over to their house. I wanted him to defend me. Instead, he told me to rest and watch some TV. The day of the shower came. I sat at home for hours, telling myself not to go. But my heart wouldn't let me stay home. That was our baby. That was my family, too. I put on the prettiest dress I owned, light blue, with little white flowers, and did my hair the way Mason liked. I even wore the necklace he gave me on our first anniversary, a little silver heart with my birthstone inside. I drove to Patty's house and saw all the balloons and decorations outside. Blue streamers, "It's a boy," banners, all the stuff I dreamed about growing up. For a second, standing on the porch, I almost turned around. I should have. I opened the door. The second I stepped inside, every conversation stopped. Plates hovered in midair. Cups froze halfway to lips. I stood there in my nice dress, my belly sticking out, smiling like a damn fool. Patty rushed over to me like I had set the house on fire. "Cassidy, what are you doing here?" she said, low and sharp, like she was embarrassed for me. "I'm here for the shower," I said, already feeling my cheeks burning. Gerald appeared behind her. "We told you. This is for real family." I looked around. The living room was full of decorations, food, gifts stacked almost to the ceiling. But there was no chair for me. They had set up rows of folding chairs, a big semicircle facing the gift table. No chair for me. I walked closer to the food table. There was a cake. A big one, white with blue piping. Congratulations, Mason and baby Morrison. That's it. No mention of me. Not even a tiny mommy-to-be note. My hands were shaking when I turned around. Where's my seat? I asked, voice cracking. Heather came over, sipping punch, acting like she didn't see the way I was about to fall apart. We didn't think you'd show up, she said, laughing. No need to set one up for the incubator. The word hit me like a slap. Incubator. That's all they saw when they looked at me. Not Cassidy. Not Mason's wife. Not the woman carrying their first grandchild. Just a vessel. I heard soft laughter ripple through the room. I think some of them felt bad, but none bad enough to say anything. And then I saw Mason, standing by the fireplace, holding a plate of food and a cup, doing nothing, saying nothing, not even looking at me, like he was embarrassed. My whole world tilted. I stumbled backward, almost knocking into a table. I turned and fled out the door. The sobs started before I even hit the porch. I was gasping for air by the time I reached the driveway. I needed to leave. Now. But my keys were in my purse, and my purse was on the passenger seat. As I fumbled with the car door, I noticed Mason's car parked behind mine. The trunk was cracked open. I don't know why I walked over. Maybe deep down, I already knew. I lifted the trunk. 2 suitcases sat inside. Both mine, and a manila envelope on top. I picked it up with shaking hands. Inside were divorce papers. Already filled out. Already signed by Mason. I stood there, in the middle of their stupid blue decorations, holding the papers that said I was disposable. I looked back at the house. Through the window, I saw Mason laughing at something Heather said, a plastic cup in his hand. He never loved me. He just needed me. Now that the baby was almost here, I was nothing. I wasn't even family. I was just the incubator. I don't remember getting into my car. I don't remember starting the engine. All I know is that I was suddenly speeding down their street, barely able to see through the tears pouring down my face. My hands were trembling so bad I almost drove off the road. I pulled into a Walmart parking lot a few miles away and sat there, staring at nothing, the engine still running. I must have sat there for an hour, trying to breathe, trying to think. What now? Where would I go? I had no family nearby, no close friends in town. Mason had made sure of that without me even realizing it, moving me states away, making me dependent. I thought about calling him, begging him to explain. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe no. I wasn't that stupid anymore. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my dress and looked at the divorce papers again. His signature was there. And then I saw something else tucked behind the papers. A letter. I pulled it out with shaky fingers. It wasn't handwritten. It was typed. Like a damn business transaction. Cassidy, I'm sorry you had to find out like this. The truth is, this marriage hasn't been working for a long time. You know it too. This baby deserves the Morrison name, but we both know you don't fit here. You never did. I'll be filing for full custody once he's born. It's better this way. Less complicated. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Mason. Less complicated. Like ripping my heart out with some neat little errand on his to-do list. I started shaking so badly I almost dropped the paper. Full custody. They didn't just want me gone. They wanted my baby. I pressed my hands against my belly. No, I whispered. No. No. I wasn't going to let them take him. I wasn't just going to walk away. They thought I was weak. They thought I was disposable. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. I spent the night at a cheap motel off the highway, barely sleeping. The next morning, I called a lawyer. It wasn't easy. I didn't have much money. But I explained everything. The way they treated me. The shower. The papers in the trunk. She listened quietly. When I finished, she said something that lit a fire inside me. They can't take your baby unless you let them. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. I stayed hidden. I drained what little savings I had to pay for a deposit on a small apartment across town. A friend from my old job, Anna, let me crash with her until it was ready. I changed my phone number, blocked Mason, blocked Patty, blocked them all. They tried calling, texting, even showing up at Anna's apartment. But I never answered the door. I never responded. I didn't want them anywhere near me. My lawyer filed paperwork immediately, contesting any claim Mason tried to make. She advised me not to tell them where I was living. Not yet. Then something else happened that made everything worse. I got a call from my OB. Someone had tried to access my medical records. They had called pretending to be me. When the receptionist caught on and refused, the caller started screaming at her, calling her names. The receptionist thought I should know. I knew exactly who it was. They wanted to know when the baby was due, where I was delivering, probably so they could swoop in the second he was born. I started sleeping with a chair jammed against the door. I bought pepper spray. I was scared all the time, but the fear made me stronger. They weren't getting my son. 2 months later, I gave birth. It was a rough labor. 27 hours. Emergency C-section at the last minute. But when they placed him in my arms, nothing else mattered. He had a full head of dark hair, just like me. Little fists balled up against his cheeks. The sweetest cry I'd ever heard. I named him Noah. Not a family name. Not a Morrison name. My choice. When the nurse brought me the birth certificate forms, I filled them out without hesitating. Father, left blank. I wanted to cry again, but this time out of relief. He was mine. Only mine. But the Morrisons weren't finished with me yet. 2 days after I got home from the hospital, there was a knock on my door. I peeked through the peephole. Mason, standing there in jeans and a button-up, a bunch of white roses in his hand like he hadn't just tried to erase me from his life. I froze. He knocked again. Cassidy, please. I just want to see my son. My stomach twisted. He knew where I live now. Somehow he found me. I pressed my hand against the door to steady myself. No, I said, loud enough for him to hear. He stayed out there for a long time. I sat on the floor, rocking Noah in my arms, listening to the sound of him knocking over and over. Finally, he left. But I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. After Mason left that night, I barely slept. I sat up on the couch with Noah, every little sound outside making me jump. I kept checking the locks. Double, triple checking the windows. I knew him showing up like that wasn't random. It was a warning. 2 days later, I found a piece of paper tucked into my mailbox. No envelope. No stamp. It was a summons. Mason was taking me to court for full custody. He claimed I was emotionally unstable and unfit to raise a child without family support. The words blurred in front of my eyes. He had no proof. No reason. Just bold lies typed up on legal paper. But I knew the Morrisons had money. Lawyers. Connections. Influence in town. I felt like I was drowning. I called my lawyer, sobbing so hard she could barely understand me. She told me to come in the next morning. We needed to fight it hard and fast. That night, I packed a bag for Noah and me. I was scared they might try something before the court date. Scared they might try to take him. I drove 2 hours out of town to a cheap motel, checking into a room under a fake name. Every knock on the door made my heart race. I didn't even turn the lights on. I rocked Noah in the dark, whispering to him over and over, I won't let them take you. I won't. In the weeks leading up to court, things got uglier. I started noticing strange cars parked across the street from my apartment. Different cars each time, but always the same pattern, someone just sitting there, pretending to look at their phone, pretending not to watch. One night, someone banged on my door at 3 a.m., yelling, police. But when I looked through the peephole, it wasn't a cop. It was Gerald, Mason's father. I didn't open the door. I called the real police instead. When the officers got there, Gerald was gone. They filed a report, but not much else. Family disputes are tricky, one officer said, almost like it was a joke. I didn't laugh. There was nothing funny about what was happening to me. The day of the first court hearing finally came. I walked into the courtroom holding Noah so tightly he squirmed. Mason was already there, sitting with two expensive-looking lawyers and Patty at his side. Patty glared at me like I was dirt under her shoe. Mason wouldn't even look at me. When the judge came in, everything moved so fast it made my head spin. Mason's lawyer painted me like some crazy, unstable woman who ran off and hid with the baby. Said I refused to let the biological father bond with his son. Accused me of having episodes and said there were witnesses to my unstable behavior. All lies, but lies told in clean suits and polite voices. Then it was my turn. My lawyer stood up and laid everything out. The shower, the way they treated me, the divorce papers hidden in the trunk, the fake attempts to access my medical records, the harassment at my door. She even had the motel receipts, proving I fled because I was scared for my safety. The judge listened to it all, stone-faced. When it was over, he called a recess to think it over. I sat in the hallway on a hard bench, rocking Noah, feeling like my heart was going to explode. Mason came out a few minutes later, walking toward me. He had that same fake smile he used when he wanted something. "Cassidy," he said, voice low, "you can still fix this. Give him to us. We'll take care of him. You can go back to your life." I stared at him. He really thought I would just hand over my baby like an old jacket he didn't want anymore. "No," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "You're making a mistake," he said, leaning closer. "You're nobody, Cassidy. You have nothing. You're going to lose." I stood up, Noah cradled against my chest. "You'll have to kill me first." His face twisted into something ugly then. Something I hadn't seen before. Something dangerous. I turned and walked back into the courtroom. I didn't look back. When the judge finally came back, he looked tired. He ruled temporary sole custody to me, pending a full investigation. I almost collapsed from relief. But he warned me, the fight wasn't over. Mason's side had filed for a full custody trial. It would happen in 3 months. 3 months to prove I deserved to keep my son. 3 months for them to try to destroy me. Those 3 months almost broke me. Every day was a battle. I didn't have money for a fancy lawyer like Mason did. I worked at night after Noah fell asleep, typing freelance jobs from my laptop. I slept maybe 2 or 3 hours a night, always with one ear open, scared they would come for us. But I didn't give up. I saved every piece of evidence, every weird car, every unwanted call, every fake message they sent pretending to be child services or hospital workers. I kept everything. One night, about a month before the trial, something big happened. I was walking back to my apartment from the mailbox, Noah strapped to my chest, when a dark SUV screeched to a stop next to me. 2 men jumped out. I didn't even think. I ran. I ran like my life depended on it, because it did. I barely made it to my door, fumbling with the keys, kicking and screaming. A neighbor, a big, tough retired army guy, saw what was happening and came barreling out of his apartment. The men jumped back into the SUV and peeled away. The cops came. I filed another report. This time, they took it seriously. Turns out, the SUV was registered to one of Gerald's businesses. They were trying to kidnap Noah. That report became gold in my custody case. It was the beginning of the end for them. The final trial came fast after that. When I walked into court, I was different. Not scared anymore. Not shaking. I had Noah in my arms, my lawyer at my side, and a thick folder of evidence. Mason sat there looking smug, still thinking money could fix everything. Patty wouldn't even look at me. Gerald looked ready to spit nails. When the trial started, it all came out. The harassment, the stalking, the fake medical record hacks, the attempted kidnapping. Everything. My lawyer didn't just fight, she buried them. At one point, when they tried to deny the SUV incident, the judge slammed his gavel down and shouted, "Enough." Patty started crying fake tears. Heather looked like she was going to vomit. Mason just sat there, his face getting redder and redder. When it was finally my turn to speak, I stood up, heart pounding. I didn't use fancy words. I didn't cry. I told them the truth. I told the judge about being treated like garbage, about finding divorce papers while carrying Mason's child, about how they only cared about bloodlines, not people, about how they called me an incubator. And then I said the words that sealed it. My son is not a trophy. He's not a prize for them to wave around. He's my baby, and I will spend the rest of my life protecting him from people who see him as property. Silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Even Mason looked shaken. The judge didn't even take a break. He ruled right there. Full permanent custody to me. Mason's parental rights terminated. No visitation. No contact. He called Mason and his family dangerous, controlling, and a threat to the child's safety. It was over. Really, truly over. I walked out of that courtroom into the bright sun, Noah tucked safely against me. And I smiled for the first time in a long, long time. But the Mauritians' downfall didn't stop there. The attempted kidnapping charges stuck. Gerald was arrested. Patty lost her job at the bank after news got out. Heather's husband left her, taking their kids. Their whole rotten empire crumbled like wet cardboard. Mason? He tried to move to another state. But the arrest warrant followed him. He spent 6 months in jail for conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Last I heard, he's living in a beat-up trailer, broke, no job, no family left standing. As for me, I made mistakes too. I trusted too easily. I gave my heart to people who didn't deserve it. I ignored warning signs because I was desperate to be loved. But not anymore. Now it's just me and Noah. We moved out of North Carolina. Started fresh in Tennessee. I got a job working for a nonprofit that helps single moms. Noah's 3 years old now. Healthy, happy, laughing all the time. And every night, when I tuck him into bed, I whisper, "Mommy's got you." Always. Because I learned the hard way, family isn't blood. It's love. And real family? They fight for you. They don't fight to own you.